Hey everyone, Paul Kagabine here again with the Garland County Library, and we have another special guest this evening, Traci Berry. She's the Trails Coordinator of Visit Hot Springs, and she's here to talk all about the popular Northwich Trail and promote the upcoming second annual Good Run Mountain Bike Festival, which runs Friday, November 13th and ends Sunday, November 15th. Is that right, Traci?
That's right, Paul.
How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, so here in just a second, I'm going to let you take as much time as you need to talk about all of that, and then we'll come back and answer some viewer questions. And I did receive quite a few viewer questions in advance, and anyone watching live, you're welcome to ask as many as you want as well here in the comment section. So, all right, Traci, I'm going to let you take it away, and you just let me know when you're ready for me to hop back in, and we'll get to those questions.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you, Paul. I'm happy to be here tonight. This is anytime I get a chance to talk about Northwoods and Hot Springs, I'm there, and this is super exciting for me. We've got a lot going on right now. So I guess just a little bit of background information. Again, like Paul said, I'm Traci Berry. I'm the Northwich Trails Coordinator for Visit Hot Springs. We opened the Northwoods in 2018, and I am an Arkansan. I've lived here my entire life. I went to school and graduated from high school not too far from here in Sheridan, Arkansas, and then obtained my first degree, my college degree at Henderson State University. So in physical education and health. So my background is in education, PE and health, and I also was an ALE director, which is an alternative learning environment program. So I've taught in 3 different school districts here in Arkansas for 13 years, and then kind of found my way into outdoor tourism. I've always loved the outdoors and have been kind of an avid cyclist, and then got into other activities like kayaking and rock climbing and things like that. But grew up in Sheridan and went to school in Henderson, and then found myself in Little Rock, Arkansas. And after teaching for 14 years, at the end of that, I found myself in Ponca in Newton County, Arkansas, up in the Northwest Arkansas, that northwest corner of Arkansas, working at a zipline canopy tour for the Buffalo Outdoor Center. So I was a part of building that first canopy tour here in Arkansas, the Buffalo River Canopy Tour, which was a little bit north of the Boxley and Ponca area of the upper Buffalo River. And that's kind of where I got my introduction to guiding groups and different things like that. So I helped build that canopy tour, and then I was a guide and a trainer and a manager of that tour. And I've done several things since getting out of education. My last school district that I was in was Mayflower, and then I was in Little Rock. And kind of what brought me here to Hot Springs, which I've been in Arkansas forever and have spent some time down here in Hot Springs. I also have an adventure race that I direct. It's called Raid the Rock Adventure Race. And that adventure race takes place mainly around Little Rock and surrounding areas. And it's a kind of, I like to describe it as a triathlon on steroids, because you don't have a marked course. You are on a mountain bike, you're on foot, and you paddle and sometimes have a climbing section in those types of races. And it's not marked, so we give you a map with coordinates that you have to plot, and you have to navigate your way through that course. And when the Northwich Trails hit the press, and everybody found out that was going to be a thing down here, I was working for Arkansas Times, which is a publication here in Arkansas, as in ad sales. And I was like, oh man, why have I never looked at the Washitas in Hot Springs for an adventure race? And so I came down here and talked to, many of you may know Bill Solider, and met with him and, gave him some ideas. I want to do something in Hot Springs so bad. And that's when he was like, hey, you should check out Northwich Trails. And by way of that, I landed this job, which is like my dream job, and ended up rappelling off the Waters Hotel. And then the next year, after taking the job off the Arlington Hotel, and now I'm managing this 2,000 acre property that has 16 and a half miles of world-class mountain bike trails built on it. So I can't tell you to be honest with you, I never thought I'd find myself in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and I couldn't be more happy to be here and doing what I'm doing now. So kind of my passion for physical activity and just healthy lifestyle and the outdoors brought me to where I'm at now. And of course, I love working with people and, just public service. And this job is put me in place to do just that. So Northwich Trails, we opened in November of 2018. We are less than 10 minutes from downtown Hot Springs, less than 3 miles from downtown Hot Springs. And now we have a connector trail, the Pullman Trail and Pullman Avenue Trailhead, that is our neighborhood connector that is built across National Park property that connects our trail system to the downtown area and the Park Avenue community and surrounding communities like Woodington, with our wonderful bike lanes that goes up Park Avenue north of downtown and connects us to Pullman. It has been just a great addition and had a wonderful impact on Hot Springs. We see since opening in 2018, November 2018, we have seen riders from all over the country and from across the pond in Europe, South America, Canada. We have all kinds of people that come and enjoy our trails, whether it be on the bike or hiking. People come from everywhere to enjoy them. And to me, what's even better than having all of these visitors come to our town to experience our trails is the community that's now growing within Hot Springs that are getting out and taking advantage of what we have just 5 to 10 minutes from downtown. So we have a growing community. We have people that may have rode 10 years ago before they started a family or maybe got busy with work, and now that they have trails accessible to where they live or work, they're getting back into that activity again. Or maybe they have children that are getting into it, so they're starting to ride again. Or maybe they've never ridden a mountain bike before, but now they're getting on the bike and they're getting out there and they're doing something that is not only good for them physically, but mentally and emotionally, especially in a year like this year that we've all have been experiencing and living through. So it has been really cool to kind of be a part of this experience and see how it can impact a community. So, but Northwich Trails, we have 16 and a half miles of trail on the Waterworks property, which is the Lakeside Waterworks plant. So it is a City of Hot Springs property where we have a active utilities waterworks treatment plant that pumps out water to the Park Avenue community area. And it's 2,000 acres, 16 and a half miles. And we also connect to Cedar Glades Park, which is a park in Garland County on county property that has another 10 miles of trail on it as well. So you can access roughly 28 miles of trail from less than 10 minutes of downtown Hot Springs, which is really cool. So those trails, the majority of them are foot friendly, so you can come out and hike, trail run, and there are trails that are specifically built for only bikes that are downhill trails where riders are picking up speed, trying to go fast, and have features in them like hills or rollers or step ups or tabletops. So you can picture a tabletop, right? Squared off. Well, the tabletop on a flow trail is kind of squared off, but has a ramp so you can catch some air and then land on the opposite side, right? Or step ups or step downs, gap jumps, things like that. So it's we have a little bit of something for everybody and every type of rider, and for those that want to come out and enjoy the scenery, whether running or hiking. We have 3 beautiful lakes on the property, 2 that we have trail that we have developed around, and we have plans for more. You can ride cross country, downhill, mountain. You can be a beginner rider on green trails. So we have 3 levels of trails. We have green, blue, and black. Green are beginner trails. Blue are for a more intermediate, mid-level rider. And then black's kind of like ski slope levels, right? Ski slope levels. And then black, more advanced trails. And we have those in both directional flow or downhill, and we have them in cross country, which is a bidirectional trail. So as you get up in level, they get a little more technical with maybe more rocks and roots, or maybe they're more narrow and have tougher climbs, or even more steep descents in them. So we have again, just a little bit of something for everyone. It's a beautiful piece of property, and we get to see people from all over the country to share their stories and how they found out about our trail system and how they found out about hot springs and why they're here. And we get to hear stories of people that are like, man, this is something that I can do with my husband or my partner or my child. And so we get into it. And this is something that we can do together. And now we're out here riding the trails, hiking the trails, running the trails together all the time. We get people that have said, hey, I couldn't have ridden 5 miles 3 months ago, but now I can ride 8 to 10. And it's just really cool to be out there and hear the stories of whether it's someone just passing through, or maybe someone that's even moved here because of the trails, or someone that's been there and been here and lived here and worked here their entire life, saying, man, this has added something for us. And so so that's Northwich Trails. And so with that, we do have some events that we put on, and every month we've started having a full moon ride. And most of that ride can take place during the daylight hours. Sometimes it tends, especially this time of year, to end in the dark. So for those that maybe aren't used to riding trails in the dark, they can do so with a group. It's a no-drop ride, so you can be at any level of riding and come out and ride with us and have a great time. It's really more about the social aspect of it and the community building part of it than it is the let's get out there and go as fast and hard as we can. And we do that every month. And we do have an organization that has started here since the trails open, which is TACO, Trail Advocacy Coalition of the Ouachitas. They are IMBA organization, in which IMBA stands for International Mountain Bicycling Association, and that is who built our trails. And so we have a chapter of that organization. It's a nonprofit. They help with advocacy. They help with trail work and maintaining our trails when we need it. And they also offer some group rides, usually on Tuesday nights. That has slowed down a little bit with the pandemic. But hopefully soon we'll be able to really promote those and start those back up again. So it's a growing community, and we have so many positives happening around it. We have support from whether it's our utilities department, our public works department, our parks and trails. It's just amazing how people and leaders in our community here in Hot Springs have come together and see the positive impact that these trails can have on Hot Springs, and want to do what they can to make this a great experience for not only those that are coming to visit, but those that live and work here. So it's a really cool deal. If you don't know, if you think, oh, that's only for bikes, I can't go. No, come out, get a short hike in, get a long hike in, check out the lakes. You can bring your dog, hike with your dog. It's really a friendly place for any and all to come out and enjoy. We just recently had a mural installed down at the Waterworks Trailhead at 300 Poundland Drive. That is kind of our main trailhead in the Northwoods system. And there we have a cement brick building. It's the pump house for the treatment plant that pumps the water back out into the city. And All's Art NWA, which is a nonprofit art organization out of Northwest Arkansas, started a project called Art Canvas in partnership with Just Kids and some other art organizations. And we were one of 12 locations within the state that had a mural installed with this project. And it's the mural design, the piece was designed by a world-class artist out of France, Camille Walala. She unfortunately couldn't travel here to do the painting herself, but she worked with professional artists through the Oz Art NWA organization, and they made her design come to life on our pump house at the Waterworks Trailhead. And it brings some bright color to already a beautiful view of Bethel Lake out there. And so that's a really exciting project. We'll be having the official unveiling of that mural on November 13th, which will kind of kick off the beginning of our Good Run Northwoods Mountain Bike Festival, which will be November 13th through 15th. So coming up here really quick. So we're super busy trying to finalize everything for that. And we're super stoked and excited to have that now our second year of this festival. So if you're looking for something to do a couple weekends from now, November 13th through the 15th, come out, check it out. If you aren't real sure what this sport or this activity is all about, we'll have a food truck. We'll have Superior Bathhouse Brewery will be there. We'll have a few vendors, and we'll have people coming in from all around us, surrounding states and further, to come in and ride bikes. We kick off the weekend in Good Run on Friday the 13th. Spooky, right? Friday the 13th, we'll have packet pickup at Cedar Glades Park, which is located at 461 Wildcat Road. We'll be set up out there and checking in racers and participants for the weekend, getting their packet with their swag, and directing people and letting them know how they can enjoy our trail system. That night, we will have the Slow Roll Fun Ride, which will start at the Farmers Market downtown at 5 o'clock. And we'll ride through Bathhouse Road downtown and actually into the Arlington Hotel and through the lobby, out the valet area, back onto Central, north around Whittington Avenue, and then back to the Farmers Market. It's a really cool ride. We had a lot of fun last year. It was actually during the day last year on the Saturday of the festival. And we're excited to have it this Friday night on the Friday the 13th. And we are encouraging people to dress in costume, Vikings, even better. And I'll get into that and the story behind Good Run here in a second. But so we're going to have a lot of fun with it. Glow in the dark, Vikings, around Bathhouse Row, around Whittington, through the historical Arlington Hotel. We're going to have a lot of fun. So that'll kick off our weekend that evening of Friday with a slow roll. And then Saturday out at Cedar Glades, we will have, and Cedar Glades out at Northwich Trails, which includes Cedar Glades Park trails along with our trails on the Waterworks property. We will have a mini Enduro and a full Enduro. And if you aren't sure what Enduro means, it is a type of mountain bike race where the participants, the racers, want to go really fast downhill, but not so much getting back uphill. So they're not necessarily timed on how long it takes them to complete the entire course, but they have stages of downhill sections that they ride, and at the end of the race, they have a composite time of how fast they rode each of those stages, and that's how they place. So these are riders that really love the adrenaline rush of going fast downhill, and then they take their time getting back uphill or riding from stage to stage. So we have a mini enduro that will be around 7.5 miles the course, and it'll have 3 stages in it. And then the full enduro will be around 14.5 to 15-mile course and have 6 stages that they will ride in that. Shortly following the enduro races, if you haven't been out to Cedar Glades Park, they've had some really cool additions since last fall. They now have a skills park area there near the parking lot at the trailhead at Cedar Glades Park. And so on that area, we're going to have a jump jam. And so these are guys that they might be on their BMX bikes, or they might be on their full suspension mountain bikes. And by full suspension, I mean bikes that have shocks in both the front and the back to absorb. And so they'll do all kinds of tricks. Last year we had guys that were doing double back flips off the jumps, 360 turns, just all kinds of really cool stuff. And so it's a very, very spectator friendly event. And we encourage people to come out and watch that. That will begin at 3:00 in the afternoon on November the 14th. Red Light Roastery, we're very thankful for them, and they will be the sponsors of that event this year. And then shortly following the jump jam, we will have an award ceremony, which will award the best costume for the slow roll. We'll award our enduro riders for both the mini and the full, and then for the jump jam as well. So that'll be a full fun day. We'll have our vendors, we'll have Taco Mama and Superior and all of this riding bikes going on. And then Sunday is reserved as part of the Good Run Festival for Attila the Hun cross-country mountain bike race. So Attila has been around for over 20 years. They started in the early 90s, and they actually started that race on the Waterworks property where our Northwich Trails began in 2018. So, or was open in 2018. So they rode out there until a little bit of history in 2011. I'm sorry, not 2011. 9/11 happened. Again, we had 3 lakes on that property, and those lakes at that time were used as part of our drinking reservoirs. They pulled water from those lakes for our drinking water here. And when 9/11 happened, our leadership, Hot Springs, was worried and concerned that we could possibly have someone come in and contaminate that. And so because of that, they banned any kind of public activity, any kind of mountain biking or public use of that property at that time. And so Attila the Hun had to move to Charlton Campground out at Lake Ouachita, and they had the race out there for a few years. And then they built trails at Cedar Glades Park, and they found their way kind of back almost home at Cedar Glades to continue Attila the Hun mountain bike race. And then starting last year, they kind of came back home and were able to use Northwich Trails or the Waterworks Trails as a part of the course for the Attila the Hun race. So we're super excited about that. They are typically, in a year not like this year, they are the championship race for the AMBCS series, or the S stands for series. So it's the Arkansas Mountain Bike Championship Series. And it's a series, they hold races throughout Arkansas over the year. And then it kind of culminates at Attila the Hun at the end of the year in November. So we're super excited about that and to continue Attila the Hun. So a little bit that maybe some of you may know and some of you might not know, when you're probably wondering why Good Run? It's not a running event. Why are you calling it Good Run? We get that question a lot. So it's just like a 25K, 5K, 10K, 50K. Is this a running event? It's not a running event. So Good Run is, let me back up a little bit. So in our trail system, we have a couple of trails that have kind of a Viking background, Germanic kind of name to it. So Valkyrie is one of our trails out at Northwoods on the Waterworks property. And we named it Valkyrie because the person that built that trail was a solo female trail builder named Valerie. And so the IMBA guys and the crew, the IMBA Trail Solutions crew that came out and built those trails, wanted to name it something that would represent Val. And so Valkyrie was perfect, right? Valkyrie is like a female warrior kind of figure, strong. And so Valkyrie, then one of the last trails we had laid down there or built in the Northwoods was Ragnarok. And it kind of connects into Valkyrie. And Ragnarok, if you're not familiar with kind of that type of, I guess, story or thing, it was the ending. So it's where all of the gods came together and there was this big war and the gods were killed off. And then what happened after that was this utopia, this Ragnarok. After Ragnarok, you have this utopia, this perfect place. And so with Ragnarok being the last trail of phase 1 of Northwoods, Valkyrie already had Valkyrie. And we thought, oh, that's a really cool name. We're going to call that Ragnarok. Happens that there are rock features within that trail, but it kind of all went together. And so when we were trying to figure out what do we want to call our mountain bike festival, what's catchy, Hot Springs. We love to have fun here, right? And so one of our advertising and marketing staff here on our team, one of our team members was like, hey, I've done some research. Turns out Good Run depends on what story you look up for Good Run, but she was like a female warrior. She was Attila the Hun's last wife. She actually killed Attila, which we definitely don't want to kill Attila, but she killed Attila and became the defeater of the Huns. And so then we thought, oh, this is cool. What's better than Vikings and bikes, right? So we named our festival Good Run, and we have so much fun with it each year. And we're just going to continue to do so. So it's just, if you haven't been a part of this, if you haven't experienced the Northwoods or Good Run, we want everybody to come out and see what we have out there. You don't have to ride. You could hike. You could just enjoy the outdoors. But it's just a fun, open place to be where just, all are accepted. So yeah, you can check us out on social media. On Facebook, it's Northwich Trails Hot Springs. We're on Instagram, Northwich Trails Hot Springs. We have a new website, northwichtrails.org. You can also go to the Visit Hot Springs website, which is hotsprings.org, or bikehotsprings.com, and get more information about us. So that's kind of I could talk all night about this, but that's kind of my spiel. And so if we have any questions or anything, Paul, you want us to answer, I'm here.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Good.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks.
All over the place, but yeah, it's just really exciting stuff. So
yeah. Well, thank you. That was very informative. But so we do have plenty of questions that I received in advance, and if anyone watching has any, please comment them. But first of all, I want to give a shout out to my boss, the library director, Adam Webb. He's a biking and trails enthusiast himself, and he recently finished his first Northwoods 100-mile competition in just 4 days here since November began. And I think I can pull up a picture here that you guys posted on your page.
Yeah.
Now, he sent me several questions. Now, personally,
oh boy, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'll try to answer.
Well, personally, I appreciate trails, but I wouldn't call myself a local trails expert like he is. So I didn't quite know that I understood some of them at first, but you kind of helped me understand with your explanation there about some of the naming of different trail features. Now, I did, though, recently go out to Northwoods myself about a week or so ago here in the fall, and it's really beautiful scenery out there. So before I move on to some of Mr. Webb's questions, what would you consider the best time of the year to experience Northwoods?
Oh man, what's wild is it's just I hate to even give one time of year or one season because it's really cool because it's almost like a different view out there every 3 months, right? So summer is super green. You have this canopy over the trails, and it's just beautiful at times, especially after a rain. That it's almost like a rainforest coming through in certain sections. And then you have the fall when you have like now when you went out there and the leaves are starting to change. The view is kind of opening up a little bit because the leaves are starting to fall.
Mhm.
And it's just sunset with the sun coming through there. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, there's lots of mudbirds on the ground too, and like the way the creek's flowing, it's just really beautiful.
It's just really beautiful. And then winter, when leaf off, after leaf off occurs, that really opens up those views. And so when you climb up like Valkyrie or even Waterworks Blue to Hub H, and you can see over the lakes, and it's just, I mean, man, probably I'm partial to fall. I love fall. I mean, that's just, I mean, I celebrate my birthday with Northwoods, right? So, and I was also a basketball player. And so fall is just, and even with being outdoors, just because it gets a little bit cooler, the bugs aren't as bad, right? You don't have to worry about snakes so much. And so it's just a little bit different. And it's just, so yeah, I'm gonna go with fall.
Good answer. Same here. Same here. Just in general, my favorite season.
Yeah.
So let's move through Adam Webb's questions real quick, get them over with, and we'll move on. Some from other viewers. He had some really good general ones that I think people not super familiar with those trails will find beneficial. So let's start with, is camping allowed at Northwoods or Cedar Glades? And if not, are there plans to make it available?
We do not have that available at this time. We do allow camping, or Cedar Glades does allow camping for special events. For instance, Good Run, we will allow camping out there for that weekend. Other than that, it's not out there at this time. There are not plans at this time. So Northwoods is kind of a phased project. We've already been through phase 1 where we put 16.5 miles of trails on the ground out there. We hope to have eventually 40 plus miles of trails on just the Waterworks property, which will still connect to Cedar Glades. And so there are several different things that we're looking at, hopefully being able to offer out there. And then we'll work with the city with that, because again, it is a city property. Jake and I, which is, we only have one other staff, Jake, who's our trail specialist. Our primary deal out there are the trails. So we'll work with the city and hopefully eventually over the coming years have more things to offer. Camping could possibly be that or be one of those things, but right now we don't have a plan in the works for that.
Well, that'll be nice. That's a real convenient, easily accessible location for people that live in the city, compared to some of the outer parts of the county. So.
Oh, for sure. And that's probably one of the questions we get asked from people coming in town the most is, hey, where can I camp?
Mm.
Where's a campground close to the trails that I can camp? And so it definitely would be a great addition if in the future we're able to offer that.
Let's see. Also, will non-motorized boats or fishing or swimming be available?
Kind of the same thing as the camping is, hopefully in future phases of the trails, we're able to bring more of those activities onto the property. Maybe in the 2 upper lakes, fishing and non-motorized water activity would be a possibility. No plans as of yet, but, definitely something that we're hoping we'll be able to look at in the future.
And are there toilets available at either trailhead?
So we have 4 trailheads. This is something I did not cover.
Man-made toilets.
We have 4 trailheads within the system. We have the Pullman Avenue trailhead. We have the Waterworks trailhead, which is really considered the main trailhead of the Waterworks trail system. We have the Cedar Glades Park main trailhead there. And then we have Bull Bayou trailhead, which is within the Cedar Glades Park on down Cedar Glades Road. So out of those 4 trailheads, we have restrooms at Bull Bayou, Cedar Glades Park, and then we have porta potties available at the Waterworks trailhead. With the Waterworks portion of the system being the newest, we don't have that developed to that extent where we actually have restrooms, a restroom building on site, but that's something that is in future phases that we'll have. So we plan to develop the Pullman Avenue trailhead as well. So we will have toilets available at those trailheads in the future. And as far as toilets go, potable water. So we do have drinking water available at the Waterworks trailhead only.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And he also had a few deeper cut questions, and you might have touched on this one and I didn't catch your answer, but he asked, when will phase 2 of Northwoods begin? So
fingers crossed. I mean, I would love for it to start hopefully by the end of 2021. We have 16.5 miles on the trail on the ground right now, just within the Waterworks system. And now that Cedar Glades is kind of considered a part of that, even though they're on county property, those are still trails that we need to help maintain as a part of them falling under the umbrella of our trail system. And that's quite a bit of maintenance with the staff that we have. And so, getting staff and maintenance in place right now for what we have on the ground, and then looking forward to future phases that kind of, but in an ideal situation, hopefully we would be able to break ground on the phase 2 at the end of 2021. But within the next 2 years, I would say we would be able to start that.
This one was definitely a local trails enthusiast question from him. Which feature has more wrecks, Moose Knuckle or Wreckit Ralph?
So, I would say the one that I hear about the most often is Wreckit Ralph, both from women and men that ride that section. It's a creek crossing. It's a super rocky creek crossing that's located on the Freeman Trail on the east side of our trail system. Freeman Trail, it's a blue trail. It's bi-directional, so it's cross-country. And at the north kind of eastern corner of Freeman Trail, there is a, I guess you would really call it southeastern corner of Freeman Trail. There is a rocky creek crossing that can get some people, whether they're going clockwise or counterclockwise. If you don't pick that right line, there's a likelihood that you're going to go down. And I would say probably it happens there more often than the other side.
All right. And he had one final question. What is your favorite trail and why isn't it Ragnarok?
What are you saying? You feel like Ragnarok, Adam? Come on. I love Ragnarok. I do love Ragnarok, especially the downhill portion. I am definitely a rider that prefers going fast downhill as opposed to climbing uphill. So Ragnarok is, in its entirety, is a little over a mile long, and the majority of that is a really fun downhill section. And then after that downhill section, the only way you have to go is up. And it's a pretty nice, steep climb of switchbacks to connect back into Valkyrie. So that would maybe be why Ragnarok isn't my favorite trail. But that's really tough. That's a really tough question because the majority of the time that I ride, and when I find time, which funny is when I took this job, I probably ride a little bit less as a trails coordinator than I did before I took this job. So most of the time when I'm out there, I'm working or I'm helping Jake with trail maintenance or I'm getting reeds off of trail counters, because we do have trail counters out there in different locations. But most of the time, I have a block of time that I have set out, and I'll go to the east side. And probably my most favorite trail on the east side is, this is tough because I really love Cat's Meow going downhill, and I love Pump House. But I really do like Freeman Trail going counterclockwise, just because of the views and just the different kind of terrain over there. Because I'm probably a little bit more of a cross-country rider than I would be a downhill, rider. I'm not going to hit gap jumps. We have a 24-foot gap in our Black Diamond Trail Lucky 13 that I'm not going to take. Now, I'm 47 years old, about to be, and if I could take that gap, I can learn how to jump that gap, I will. And rest assured, it will be posted everywhere. But but on the west side, probably my favorite trail would be Valkyrie going downhill. And that's mostly just because of the views. To me, especially this time of year at sunset, Valkyrie is the place to be. It's a beautiful view, and the way the sun comes through those yellow and red and orange leaves, it's just, I would have to say Valkyrie.
All right. It sounds like he tried to kind of get you there a little bit.
Pick me up.
So I'm gonna put this picture back on the screen, and if anyone wants to give a funny caption here, All right. So we also had a few questions submitted when I posted about this event in the Taco Facebook group. Someone named Javier asked, what were some of the surprising economic impacts that nobody anticipated? Are there local businesses that have helped with Northwoods and Good Run that we can appreciate more with our business?
Mm-hmm. So I think that, I don't know if it was so much surprising. I do think that people were maybe somewhat surprised at the amount of bikes that they're seeing coming through downtown on the backs of cars from states all over. I think that they knew that it was a good thing and that it would impact our city, but I don't know that they thought it would impact us the way it has in such a short amount of time. Our trails really we haven't even been on the ground for 2 full years, opening in 2018 in November. So Good Run will be our second anniversary or birthday. And so I think that it has been a very pleasant surprise at the amount of traffic that those trails have seen. Through this pandemic, has been certainly a kind of a special situation where people have been able to find themselves in a place where they could get outside more and take more time to do that. And so we've definitely seen an uptick in traffic through that. From the beginning of this through August, we saw 38 states that we actually saw with our eyes at the Waterworks Trailhead represented down there. And we're seeing, and I haven't really talked about trail counts here, but so we have trail counters at 6 different locations within the system. We have magnetic counters and we have infrared counters. And those magnetic counters are to give us bike specific traffic, and the infrared is to kind of give us overall traffic. Because we do have quite a bit of hikers and trail runners that come out. And so, we are seeing between 1,500 to 2,000 counts a week out there. And so, and counts are more like, and if you're into, online type ads or things like that, it's more like a impression rather than a unique visitor. Mm-hmm. Many of those users might
go back
and forth or past different counters within one ride. So we can't say, we've had 2,000 riders this week, but we do know that our trails are definitely being used.
Well, that kind of touches on the next question. Do we have any measures as cycling tourism has increased for Hot Springs?
So right now, that would be what we have. We haven't done an economic impact study yet. I hope to be able to do that in the future. But besides, we do have our counters out there. We do have Jake and I who are just we get to talk to people that are coming into town and kind of sharing their story or telling us how they found out about the trails, where they're coming from, and things like that. And just people in the community. So when we have local events like our full moon rides or like taco and our trail work day parties, how many people are involved in that. So we can see that our community is growing, and we can see that we have all of these people from all these different states coming, and we have the count. And then when you have local businesses like hotels, especially around the downtown area, contacting us saying, hey, what do we need to do to attract mountain bikers? Do we need to put in a bike wash station? Do we need to have tools available to them? How do we store their bikes? Can you come to my place of business and tell me where I should put a bike wash? Wanting to have special packages for mountain bikers. Recently on Washita Avenue, or Quapaw rather, there was a home there, a house, and I believe, and I don't know for sure, I believe it's an Airbnb maybe, but they had a mural painted on the side of that house that's a mountain biker and kind of a moon in the background kind of deal, which is pretty awesome. And I think that speaks to the impact that our trails are having on our community.
I have another question from Javier. Limited parking is a challenge at times and potential concern for future growth. Are there plans prepared for anticipated growth?
So, and I did forget, we do have some local businesses, because you asked about supporters around, and we do have, so Superior Bathhouse Brewery is a big supporter of ours. They're usually involved in most of our events, and when taco or we need to have special meetings, they usually allow us to meet there. Red Light Roastery and Coffee House, they are big supporters of ours as well. And Hotel Hot Springs, the Arlington, we have several businesses. My mind just went blank, but I don't know why. But we have several businesses that support us around, especially the downtown area. So, but those are a few that I can throw out now for you. Parking. So, we do have 4 trailheads, and most people, I think, probably if they were driving to our trails to ride or hike or run, they would prefer to be at the Waterworks trailhead. You're right there in the middle of the system. You have a beautiful view of Bethel Lake. You have a dam here with water typically coming over it. Not right now because we haven't had any rain, but and so if they had to pick, especially if it's not a family coming to ride, they're going to go to Waterworks, and there is limited parking there. We have about 30 plus spaces there at the trailhead, and people usually park on the side of the road going up the road. But with our downtown connector like Pullman, we do have parking at Pullman, and we haven't really pushed that quite as much because of its opening during the pandemic and being a part of the national park. At that time we opened, we weren't really wanting to push for large crowds to be down there. And there is, when you use that trail, it is a green, nice wide trail that you're going to have to climb to get up and over that ridge. And then when you go back to your vehicle after riding, you're going to have to get a really nice climb to go back up and over to your vehicle. So, but there are 20 plus parallel parking spots there that I think many people don't realize they can use. And it's mostly probably used as for kind of ride up or walk up traffic. And a lot of people, I think, especially hikers, use that connection to access Sunset Trail. So we do actually go across Sunset Trail within the national park property. We can't ride on that trail. You can only ride on Pullman Trail, but you can hike either of those. And we can't have horse traffic on our trail. So it's kind of, it's unique. And then you have Cedar Glades Park, which we are excited to hopefully soon over the next few weeks being able to open a little bit more green route from the Cedar Glades Park trailhead to the Waterworks trailhead. by way of some gravel roads that the city, the utilities department is going to allow us to use for foot and bike traffic once they take care of some projects on the dams there that they want to take care of. And that will give us easier access between the two. So maybe if you ride through Waterworks Trailhead and there's no parking and you go to Cedar Glades Park, it's not going to be as challenging of a ride or as long of a ride to get from one trailhead to the other to access the other portion of the Waterworks Trails. So, and then we have Bull Bayou Park. So I think probably families use, especially families with young kids that maybe the mother or the dad or the older brother and sister want to go ride. They have other things to do while they're going out on that ride, because at Cedar Glades Park, we do have a playground, or they have a playground. There's a skills park area that gets tons of usage with, I mean, you see little kids on Strider bikes going over these wooden steel bridges and features on that. And there's also a disc golf course there. So there's other things to do there as a family if not all of your family is going to go out on the ride. And so same thing with Bull Bayou and Cedar Glades Park. They also have a playground there and also pavilions at each of those locations that people use. But as far as plans for more parking on the Waterworks portion of the trail system, especially after we start to develop more trail, that is definitely something that we'll need to look at and providing for our trail users.
I have a question about safety. Hoping you would go over a few quick basics.
Okay, so safety as far as like what gear or things you should wear or things you should know before you go out there?
The question was specifically, what are some basics we are all encouraged to practice?
Okay, so any type of outdoor activity that you go out on, especially if you go out solo, you should always let someone know where you're going, the route you plan to take, and how long you plan to be out there. I used to be the worst in the world. I would go on solo kayaking trips and I would get in trouble by friends all the time, but I'd go on solo camping trips in the Ozarks by myself. But so what I would always make sure I did is I'd let my mother or someone know, hey, this is where I'm going to be. This is where I'm going to camp. Of course, you can't do that in the Northwoods, but so I'm going to go to Waterworks Trailhead. I plan on riding this route. It should take me this amount of time. So then they know if they don't hear from me by a certain time, maybe they should be concerned. So, because it is an activity that there are risks taking, and even the most advanced rider could have a wreck, out there, because the trail, it changes the nature of this activity. The trail is really most of the time never going to be the same, because as we ride it and as we use it, our terrain is rocky, it's rooty, it could be wet, it could be dry, there could be rocks that have been pulled loose, there could be rocks that have moved within a trail. And so most of the time when an advanced rider has a wreck, it's probably in an area that they would never expect to have a wreck, because they're just, I'm not gonna, this is the green trail, I'm not gonna wreck here. For me, probably more often than not, when I go down is on a green trail or on a section of a blue trail, that I've never had a problem on, just because, I'm not paying attention or something, or maybe there's a rock that I didn't notice, or maybe it's wet and my tire slips on a root. So there is always a risk and always a possibility that you could have a wreck and have an injury. And so, especially if you go by yourself, it's always recommended to go in groups or at least with one other person. But if you go by yourself, make sure you let someone know that you're going and when to expect to hear from you by. So I use an app called Strava, and a lot of people do. And when you pay for that app, you can send links to your ride to your contacts, to 3 different contacts. And so I'll usually send it to my mom and to my partner and Jake every once in a while, especially if we're checking trail and we're away from each other. Just so they know, and they can kind of watch your route. And I tested it on a hike with my mom, really funny, in my neighborhood off of Park Avenue. And I actually stopped to talk to neighbors once, and she sent me a text. Are you okay? Are you okay? Like, I saw that you stopped. You were stopped for a long time, but then you looked like you were walking this way. And she thought maybe I had, yeah, all the things went through my mind. I said, Mom, I'm fine. I just was talking to the neighbors. But so there are apps out there, and there are helmets actually that have technology in them that if you were to have impact, if you don't turn that off within a certain amount of time, it will send a text to emergency services.
That's really cool.
So there are things, it can cost, but there are ways to, so of course we highly recommend. We don't have a law that says, or any type of rule out there that says you must wear a helmet when you ride, but it is highly, highly, highly recommended that you wear a helmet when you ride. If any other safety gear, that is the most important. I mean, this is very important. I call it a brain bucket. When I worked on the canopy tour, all of our participants had to wear a helmet, and it was like, that's our brain bucket that protects this guy in here that we need to function. And there's no, like, people say, oh, helmets are so expensive. Medical bills for a brain injury are much more expensive than a helmet. So helmet, definitely highly recommended. And if you're going to be doing, especially if you're going to be doing like the downhill flow trails, there are elbow pads and guards and knee pads and guards that you can purchase to wear, and even your core chest guards that you can wear. So, and always go out with water, especially in the summer months, but even in the fall and winter months, when you think, oh, I'm not sweating a lot because it's cold outside, you still need to hydrate. Mm-hmm. So always go out with water. So that to me, and again, and even prior to going out on the ride with all that safety gear, it's very important that before each ride that you always check your gear. You check your bike. You make sure that your brakes are working. You make sure that your gears are working. Make sure that your handlebars aren't loose. And so always do a safety check on your bike and make sure that everything's working properly before you get out on the ride, and then make sure that you have the proper gear, water, and even especially if you plan on going on like an extensive ride where it might be 8 to even 25 plus miles, snacks to make sure you're fueled. So, and if you're by yourself, let someone know your plan.
Sound advice. All right. While we're on the subject of safety, we got one that's a little bit darker, but still very important. Regine asked, is there one of those blue light emergency call lines out by the parking? Would be good for injuries if someone breaks their phone in the process of a struggle or any kind of situation like that.
Yeah, and so I saw that post by Regine, and I hate to say it, I was like, that's a great question to bring up, because we don't have that out there. And when it comes to service out there, if you have Verizon, you can pretty much get a signal anywhere out there. AT&T, you'll be lucky to get a signal unless you're on one of the hilltops, like at Hub H, which is the highest point out at Northwoods that you can be on, and where our more advanced downhill trails begin. You might be able to get a signal, but so that would be something that I think is a great idea, and something that I need to look into further.
A question from Brianna, or more of a comment. It would be cool if they could coordinate an informational hike for identification of native and local species of plants and fungi, including edible and poisonous species.
Mm-hmm. So we have all kinds of cool. So this last summer, when we had that big kind of flash flood downtown that happened, the 4.5 inches of rain in a very short period of time. And when Jake and I went out shortly after that rain to check the trails, there were mushrooms everywhere. Like, we couldn't eat all the mushrooms I picked after we checked the trails that day, chanterelle mushrooms. But we do have a lot of very rare, both plant plant life out there. And I think that that would be really cool too, especially if we found an organization that had extensive knowledge in that area to partner with and offer that type of opportunity for people. I've recently noticed a lot of activity with someone locally here that has posted a lot and tagged Northwich Trails in his Instagram. And it's beautiful pictures of the plants and things out there that he's seeing in Northwoods, which I think is really, really cool. So I think that that would be something great to add to the experience of our trails.
Similar comment or suggestion. Those trails are really pretty cool, but it's too hard to hike on it with bikes around. It gets pretty dangerous. So a coordinated event would also allow hikers to see the trails that are usually used by bikers. That would be pretty cool.
Okay. So it was just interesting because there are many times that I'm out there when our parking lot is full and I'll ride, and I rarely come across another rider because our trails are so spread out and it's a stacked loop system. So it's not like an out and back or there's only one way to ride it. There's several ways to ride our trail system. So rarely do I hear that, even though we might have our parking lot full and have 60 to 70, however many riders, and Cedar Glades is full with that happening. But I do not doubt that it does happen at times. And so I do think some like foot only events, whether it be a trail run or some type of hike or something like that, would be a great activity to hold out there. So I appreciate that suggestion.
Question from Bill Solider. So it may be serious, maybe a joke.
Is it about beavers? It's about beavers.
It is. Yeah. What's the deal with all the beavers here? I've heard we have beavers in Arkansas.
And they're so cute, but so we do have beaver activity out there in certain areas, and interesting enough, we do have some activity at the Waterworks trailhead. We have a creek that runs into the trailhead and is also used by the water plant that flows out into Bethel Lake there at the trailhead. And beavers want to make their pool, right? They want to dam up moving water so they can have their pool to do their thing and to, kind of create their own little ecosystem in. And so we have had issue where they've tried to take down some fairly large trees to do that with. And so it's really not a lot we can do. We've had the water treatment guys, we've talked to them about it, the utilities guys. And so we actually had to cut down a significantly large tree that was at the Waterworks trailhead about 20 yards behind our kiosk on the east side, because they had, before we ever noticed it, there was a significant chunk taken out of it to where if it fell, it could possibly fall onto our kiosk, onto that trailhead area. And so when it becomes a hazard for that tree that they're trying to take down, because, the utilities property has been there for over 100 years. It's been an operating utilities property. So I hate to say that we've moved into their territory, because that happened a long time ago. But this is their habitat, right? And so we don't want to necessarily, it'd be kind of nice if we could just relocate them or do something like that. So we try to just take measures if we happen to notice a tree. So we actually had to have urban forestry come out and cut that tree down because it became a hazard. But we were able to catch another large gum tree on our pump house trail coming back into the Waterworks trailhead before they really got into it, and put fencing around the base of it to hopefully save it and keep them from doing any more damage to that tree. So, but they have definitely been active out there. Now when the sun starts to go down, sometimes you'll see them swimming across the lake. And if you're in their area and they feel like they can't do what they want to do because you're there, you'll get this real loud slap on the water. They'll slap the water with their tail to kind of scare you and startle you because they want you out of their area. I was hiking out there a couple of weeks ago, and I was out there a little bit later than I planned. And I was almost back to the trailhead using my cell phone light to get back, and a beaver went right across me on the trail into the lake water. So there are areas where we definitely around the water, we see more activity. Cedar Glades, there by the Garland County landfill, they have a pond there, and it has a lot of beaver activity going on. It surprises me. I didn't think that they would really work on pine trees, but they do. And so quite a bit of trees over there have been taken down by them, or we've had to cut them down because they're a hazard to fall across the trail. So, and actually one of the first times I've ever heard a beaver slap his tail on the water was a late ride for me. I had a flat and didn't have what I needed to fix the flat. So I was actually hiking my bike out, and it was getting dark, and that loud slap on the water. It startled me, and I filmed him, but he swam and swam and swam, waiting on me to leave the area. So we do have beaver activity happening out there, and they probably, I'm like anti-beaver. So yeah, they frustrate me some.
I've never seen a wild beaver, but I've seen lots of nutria.
Oh yeah, yeah. We have a lot of that.
So other than beavers, what other animals should people keep an eye on? Just for their beauty or for safety concerns?
For deer, so we do have a lot of deer out there, and typically they're not going to be a bother to you. We have had a rider in a full moon ride, so of course it's getting dark, and that's when they become more active, almost Tia deer out there. So if you're riding out there late, when deer are more active, you always look ahead, always know your surroundings, because there's always a possibility that they could be running downhill or across the trail. Other than that, I mean, we've seen bald eagles out there at Bethel Lake. We've seen, we have a couple, would you call it a goose couple or a geese couple? I mean, so it's two goose, right? And they're a couple because they mate for life, that come in every year at the beginning of summer. And we have a rock formation out there in Bethel Lake that they will come to and lay their eggs, and they will guard it until their eggs hatch. And then throughout the summer, as their goslings are maturing, they're out there. And sometimes, they don't make it. Sometimes not all of them do. This year they had 3 of the 5 survive, and they're so cute when they're little bitty goslings, and then they kind of get in this awkward teenage stage, and then they're almost adults by the time they leave at the end of summer. But that time of year, we tend to see a lot of goose scat, I guess you would say, at the trailhead, which can kind of be a little frustrating. We have to get our poop scooper out there and pick up goose poop. But until that,
probably doesn't make
it. Yeah. But yeah, and then of course in summer, we do have water out there. This is the Ouachitas, so we see water moccasins. We see a lot of non-poisonous snakes, and we see water moccasins in the wet areas, and we also see a decent number of copperheads out there. So it's, again, I mean, I think it's important, whether you're hiking, trail running, any kind of outdoor activity that you're doing, especially out in a wooded area, that you're always aware of those surroundings and know that that's always a possibility that you'll come across possibly a snake or something like that.
You got a couple really nice comments. One from Biddy. I love hiking the Northwich Trails. Have enjoyed talking with several great bikers too. Thanks for such a wonderful recreational area.
Thank you.
Then Michaela says, my husband rides about 3 times a week as a therapy for him from work and just life right now. Thank y'all so much for these trails. Has really changed his life.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
All right. So one final question for me, just tell us a story you find interesting. Can be funny, scary. I'm sure you have many, but all kinds of.
Wow. Oh, that's a tough one. You're gonna hit me with that there right there.
Narrow it down to just one.
To just one. Okay. Well, no, I don't want to. Yeah. Man, that's really hard because even on a daily basis, when I'm able to be out the trailhead, I come across so many different people, whether it's locals and people that are local and right out there almost on a daily, to people that are coming in town on a road trip, and just passing through, and they happen upon Northwich Trails. And so, just to give you something quick, because today I was out there, we're in the final days leading up to Good Run, so we have a lot that we've got to do out on the trails as far as marking course, getting the trails ready for race ready for participants, and all of that. And I was out there today, taking care of a few things, and I pull up and there's a car in the Waterworks parking lot and it has the Alabama license plate. And I was like, oh, cool, sweet. Got Alabama here, in the middle of the week. And this guy rides up from the east section and he's looking at our kiosk at the map. And so usually when they're doing that, my first thing is like, hey, man, what's happening? You know where you're at? You need me to direct you somewhere or whatever? And he's like, well, no, not really, but that's part of it. I don't really want to know where I'm at. I'm lost on purpose, kind of thing. So we start talking, and I was like, are you from Alabama? He's like, oh, no. I rode in from the Pullman Trailhead. I'm from Florida on a road trip to San Diego. And so I'm doing all these different places. And he's like, I've always heard about Hot Springs National Park, but I've never stopped. And so I came here for the park and I found out about Pullman. If you go to their website, you see Pullman Trailhead, but I had no idea that there were all these other trails within that I could get on. And so he was just super stoked and excited. And so that was kind of neat just to hear his story about his road trip going from southeast of the country to the west. And then while he's there, another couple rides up. And I'm like, hey guys, how's it going? Everything good? You enjoy your ride? You from Alabama? Oh, no, we're from Texas. Actually, this couple, we're from Michigan. We rode from downtown, staying at the Waters Hotel up Cedar Glades Road to get into Pineland. And man, we're super excited about your trails. Where do we need to go? What would you suggest? And so, it's just really neat getting to meet these people, and that from all different places that are coming to Hot Springs, whether it's because of Bathhouse Row in the national park and all the history, whether it's gangster or Native American or now baseball, and then our lakes. We just have so much to offer here, and it's just really cool to get to be there and just off the cuff kind of meet people and hear how they found out about us. Or even I've been there one day when it's packed down there at the trailhead, and a woman and her husband are at their truck. You can tell that they've already been riding for a while, and they're taking a lunch break and going to go ride again. It's like, hey guys, how was the ride? And they're like, oh, it was wonderful. And she just is like, man, this is changed our relationship, because now this is something that he started doing and it was awesome. And it was like, okay, we need to spend more time together. I need to get into this. And so now they ride together, and it's just kind of changed their lives as a couple in that. And so for me, I just really can't, it's hard for me to pick a story, I've definitely, so here's a story about me. Cause I tell on myself all the time. When I first started this job, I was like, and I'd hear people, I went down here, or I went down there. It's like, listen, I'm probably the person that has went down the most out there in those trails. I promise you. And so it was we opened on the weekend of November 15th in 2018. So it was November 17th that we actually opened to the public. I remember that because it's my birthday. So don't everybody wish me a happy birthday. November 15th. Don't worry about it. But anyway, And so we opened to the public, and a few weeks after that is Thanksgiving, but it's a beautiful fall day. There's a little bit of wind. So I'm like, man, I'm going to go out for a ride. It was a weekend. Didn't have to be out there. It was like, I'm going to go hit the trails. And so I make my way up to Hub H, which is the main hub for the downhill flow riders that come out there. And again, at this point in time, I'm not I don't catch a lot of air. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what bike I want for me to really be able to ride the trails out there. And so I'm demoing a bike from Spa City Cycling off of Park Avenue. This Orbea 29er. I'm 5'4", barely. So I'm small. 29ers, the wheels are 29, as opposed to old school that I used to ride 26 and a half. Now my tires are 27 and a half in, I guess, diameter. But so I'm on this bike with wheels that it feels a little bit bigger than what it should be for me. So I make my way uphill. I come across a snake on my way up there. I try to get it off the trail, shoe it, kind of thing. And I make my way up to Hub H, and we have a few local young riders, 3 boys. They were the Parker brothers and one of the Rogers boys. They were riding the top of Blue Jay, which is one of our most popular downhill flow trails that starts at Hub H. And they were sessioning the top portion. So they were riding back up to the top, doing it again. And I rode it, I sessioned it, 3 or 4 times, and I was actually catching some air. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm catching air, man. I'm doing it. And then I was like, I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to set up my phone so I can get a video, right? So now I'm feeling kind of cocky. And so I get on the side of the trail, and I build a rock, platform so I can put my phone up and set it just right. I'm like, man, I want to catch that, coming across that feature. People are going to be so impressed. Set up my phone, push play. I know it's going to take more, time, but I go up to the top of the hub, and another couple was in front of me, so I let them go, get some distance. And I ride down. I'm getting it. I'm going. And I caught air, and a little bit more air than what I had been catching. And I caught my front wheel and didn't quite get it corrected before I landed. So when I landed, I just, and I went down. I went down hard. It popped back up. I was like, okay. I'm checking myself. Arms are okay. Legs, no broken bones. And about that time, the 3 boys come racing around the corner, like, oh, Traci, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I didn't quite land that one. They're like, no, you didn't. I was like, but I had my phone set up. Maybe I got a video. And what's funny is I still have that video. As you can hear, it's windy. The leaves are blowing. And you can hear the couple ahead of me and their tires on the tread of the trail, and they go by. There's a little bit of wind and the trail, just nobody. And then all of a sudden, right before I come by, my phone drops. The wind blows it over, but you hear my tires on the tread, and then all of a sudden you hear. So yeah, I got that on video, and I tell on myself all the time. Thankfully, I wasn't injured, and I was able to pop back up and keep riding. But yeah, that was probably one of those times for me.
Well, I'm going to invite you back for a part 2 sometime next year. You can give an update of phase 2, and you can share that video. So keep it safe.
Yeah. I would love to come back, and I sure do appreciate you guys having me on tonight. I could talk for hours.
That's why I'm having you back again.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll let you sign us off with just a reminder of where they can learn more information about Northwoods and Good Run and any other upcoming events you're having.
Awesome. So we have a new website that is live. It's northwoodrails.org. You can go to and find out all about our trails. When it comes to trail conditions, we do have a Twitter feed that will show up on that site. So if ever we have to have any closures due to weather or events, it will be posted there. But you can find out information about individual trails, about our trailheads, about other trails in our region on that page. You can also go to Visit Hot Springs website, which is hotsprings.org, which will give you information there on the things to do option on that page. And you can also find us at bikehotsprings.com, which will take you straight to that page on our Visit Hot Springs site. Other than that, social media wise, we are again on Facebook, which is Northwich Trails Hot Springs, and also on Instagram, Northwich Trails Hot Springs, and Twitter, which I'm getting used to using, is also Northwich Trails. So we do have, if you go to those sites and to the website, it has a phone number that you can call to get trail updates as far as trail conditions too. And we have a Facebook group page, which is Northwich Trails Hot Springs Trail Conditions, where we do a little less promoting and a little more just saying, hey, this is happening, or hey, we're going to close down Lucky 13 for the day for maintenance and things like that, to let people know what's going on. We are open 7 days a week. We do not close for holidays, from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. You can access our trails. So if you're into going out and doing night rides or even night hikes, things like that, you can do that until 10. Good Run, our events. Good Run is, even if you're not a rider, it is going to be such a fun event. And if you want to know more about the sport, it would be a great time for you to come out and just check out and see what's going on. Starts November 13th, runs through November 15th. We have the slow roll fun ride that Friday night, the 13th. Then we have the Enduro races and the Jump Jan on the 14th, and Attila the Hun cross-country mountain bike race on the 15th. So come out and see us. Come out and see what it's all about. If you just want to come out and see the art piece at the Waterworks Trailhead, it is a work of art. It is world class. We're so excited to have that down there. We will, and I'm sorry, I did not mention this. I failed to mention it. We will have, I can't remember because I just talk so much.
That doesn't hurt to.
That Friday at noon of November the 13th, we will have the official unveiling of our mural at the Waterworks Trailhead that we're super excited about. So you can always call Visit Hot Springs, or even my office number is 620-5096. So if you have any questions, if I'm not here in the office, I'll get to it as quick as I can. And you can also email info@northwesttrails.org if you have specific questions, or and direct messages on social media. So all kinds of ways to find out and to contact us. And we'd love to answer your questions or have you involved in the trails any way we can.
All right. Thank you, Traci. It was a pleasure. And you and anyone watching, you have a great evening and stay safe.
You too. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.